Why is Havoc so good in 10.2? Does it have damage? I mean, yes, and so much more damage, especially in AoE. Is it fun? Freshly reworked spec with builds around momentum and also not having to move at all, blasting damage all over the place, multiple builds to choose from, all of them competitive with each other. What more can you want in a DPS? Oh, details about it? Well, let's talk about why Havoc can be the best spec you can play in 10.2. I can tell you the damage is high, or you can watch literally any Havoc out there completely destroying the meters left and right. After the recent rework, the spec got dispatched, the devs had the liberty of working on a lot more things to actually make Havoc feel real good. The spec struggled a long time with low single target damage output and average AoE on top of being squishy. Now all of that has been changed. The single target is still the weakest point for Havoc, but the damage is way higher this time around, keeping it competitive with some of the best specs in the game. And that is only if we are talking about hitting a training dummy, which is obviously not the case. The amount of mobility and tankiness the spec currently has makes it much easier to stick to the target for longer than most other specs in the game.
Oh my god, is Havoc going to get nerfed? What's the point of playing it then?
Well, Flame from the future here, and nerfed it has been, and lo and behold, I was right. The nerfs that Havoc received in the last couple of days, because the recording of this video has been done, but we're just publishing right now, and I thought maybe we need to go over these things a little quick, and the nerfs are not that great. They're not that big, they're not that impactful. At the very least, it's about 5% overall damage nerf in Mythic Plus, which is fucking nothing. Even less in single target and even less if you don't play Fel Barrage. Why Fel Barrage? Well, if you haven't paid attention, the nerfs that essentially Havoc has received is 12% damage nerf to Fel Rush, 12% damage rush to Immolation Aura, and 12% damage nerf to Fel Barrage, and that's about it. Now, I'm not saying these will be the last of the nerfs, but the nerfs are very tiny to kind of tone it down with everybody else so that you know and you're safe that your pick is not gonna get nerfed into the ground by just like 20, 30, 40% or something crazy like that. Havoc is fine. Now back to the video. I can tell you it won't, but what I can say is that the nerfs won't hit it as hard as Rogue and Beast Mastery Hunters. Overall, Havoc is cranking, sure, and we can take a look at the general Mythic performance and see it's still second to Assassination and by quite a bit, similarly for Heroic as well. And if you go by single target damage, here's how the top DPSers are looking for Volcross and Smoldron as well. You have to scroll down quite a bit before you will get to a healthy influx of Havoc goodness. Alternatively, Mythic Plus still has Augmentation, Arcane, and Outlaw doing better overall than Havoc. So yeah, in conclusion, nerfs should bother you very little if you decide to pick up Havoc, mostly because the damage you normally witness from Havocs in your group is likely due to the super high upfront DPS that the spec is doing. Way more on-demand damage than most other classes which require ramps and setups and specific conditions. Not to mention that the Havoc Demon Hunter 2-set piece just slaps way harder than most other people's 2-set piece, so this early into the season it's likely that the influx of power just skews more towards Havoc because of these factors than into any other DPS spec in the game. Once you get past this and go higher into keys and content in general, you will notice things will start to even out a bit more. That aside, you will have a lot of burst damage with Essence Burst, aptly named, I know, Inertia, Momentum, which also there's controversy, but don't worry because you might like what I'm about to say regarding these two talents. But also, Fel Barrage has been redesigned to be a literal powerhouse of big Giga Chad damage. On top of all of this, you have 5 total capstones, and all are good in their respective builds, of which there are 5 of, and you can play some of them with 4 capstones at once. If you ever thought Havoc was ever boring, you clearly haven't played the 10.2 version, which adds so much more flavor and actual things to do. And yes, that includes extra buttons as well. What are those buttons though? Well, let me show you what talents you can snag and have some fun of your own. To momentum or not to momentum? The hottest ever topic to breach the lips of a Havoc player is whether or not you have to play the momentum build. Short answer is, you don't. Long answer is, you probably shouldn't if you are already asking this question. As it stands, there are currently 5 total builds you can play and 2 of them don't play momentum at all, and instead they play on our Patreon platform. Damn it! Haha! These segues are crisp. Almost as crisp as the wallpapers you can get with your main character if you do decide to support our content. I mean, sure, you will be directly helping us make more videos, but wallpapers are a way for us to show our appreciation back, you know? The link to our patreon.com/MarcelianOnline is down below, and I just spelled it out as well. Where were we? Ah yes, momentum sucks. The 2 builds that don't play momentum are the ones you currently see on the screen. Essentially, you have the single target version of what the community is calling the no mover build. This will work great in raids where you want to optimize boss damage but don't really care about playing momentum. Similarly, Mythic Plus has a low movement build, and by low I mean you will really only move when you use Vengeful Retreat to trigger the initiative talent. You don't actually have momentum in your arsenal. And these 2 are fun because they still use other mechanics to do cool damage with, like Essence Burst for the single target one and Fell Barrage for AoE. And as far as the damage difference between these and their momentum counterparts is concerned, it is about 3 to 4% if you're a perfect robot that plays exactly how the Sims tell you to play, which nobody is, of course. So according to the top dogs in the Fellhammer Discord, the difference for humans is about 1 to 2% damage gain if you opt for momentum and actually play it correctly, because otherwise you might as well just play the no mover builds. And speaking of momentum, for those of you enjoyers of fine gaming, you'll be playing with the new momentum talent on steroids, which is Eneria. This is kind of what momentum was in Legion, where you get very few of these damage windows, but when they happen, they slap. This offers a much higher burst damage profile that you won't find in the no mover build, since those are just about consistency over burst. As such, the Energia builds favor stuff like Essence Burst and Fell Barrage way more, so you can funnel more damage in those short windows. The builds that you see on the screen are the baseline momentum talents for Raids and Mythic Plus respectively, with more alterations out there for you to find when you want to go deeper into it. A quick shout out to Shadorak, who wrote the Wowhead guide where you can find all of these builds, and the Havoc community as well, that even has a podcast where they talk about the spec. And once you get your tier set, the new one of course, you will have some crazy plays with the Hunt. Arguably one of the coolest Demon Hunter's abilities ever made. Blade Dancing will throw glaives on the target, and when those or your regular throw glaives are used, you reduce the cooldown of the hunts, giving you more hunts and more damage. After the rework, the talents have been rearranged, and a lot of before unseen abilities have been made more accessible. This mostly in terms of utility. First of all, with Fell Eruption being baseline, you have a good crowd control that costs nothing. You also are fundamentally tankier with Stamina and Leech talents, but also Demon Hide that reduces physical damage intake by quite a bit, also gives damage. And if it wasn't enough, the rework took a page out of the Shadow Priest rework manual for all specs and made a Havoc row with just defenses, a row that you cannot skip. This always gives you access to Nether Walk, your giga good immune ability, without having you sacrifice damage output for it. Too many years have passed where you had to give up big time on certain talents to take this one, but not anymore. Whether you are a fan of momentum or not, Havoc actually makes everything that screams Havoc really fun. The playstyle is really active and chaotic, but in a good way. If you don't play the momentum builds, you essentially ram your target with chaos strikes and extend your demon form while occasionally slapping big essence burst on your target. It gives you time to plan out your essence burst windows and essentially makes the gameplay a bit simpler, but more under your control. When you swap to momentum, you also hook up your brain to a 700 horsepower Dodge Challenger engine that takes you on a ride. The ride will be painful. You will die a lot, but man, is it ever fun to blast the meters to Kingdom Come left to right. What? How can you dodge mechanics when you use your mobility for damage? Lol. Flip a coin and hope it lands outside of the fire because your pedal is to the floor and the only way out is when either you or your target is dead. The playstyle is indeed more engaging and does slightly more damage. Just a bit more damage to make it feel like the extra effort you put into playing this godforsaken accursed build is worth it. But not too much damage where if you don't want to bleed out of your eye sockets after just half a dungeon key, you can still out DPS everyone except the Beastmastery Hunter. You don't think I'm doing justice to Havoc by mentioning Beastmaster Hunter again? Well, luckily enough, we already have a video out on that specific spec, and no, it doesn't focus just on the damage it deals, the spec is more than that. So click here and enjoy!